both societies.
Do you favor one Star Nation group over another? I mean, is there a one that you really take to your fancy?
You mean favorite race among them?
Yeah.
Well, that would be speaking to personal prejudice. I don't think there's any race that's intrinsically better than any other. They all subscribe to the 11 universal and 11 spiritual laws. I have kind of a special heart place for the praying mantis folks, having dealt with their energy, and in working with the people who've had that, they have a very high ethereal, spiritual, fine, gentle, warm, loving energy that I particularly cherish, but I could say good things about many of the other races I've heard about or had some contact with, too, so I wouldn't want to play favorites here.
The praying mantis folks. They were the praying mantis type. That was the ones that came off the craft in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Do you remember that scene?
Well,
kind of
those were kind
spindly.
Of Spielberg generics. They may have been an attempt to depict them.
And I'm talking about right in the beginning, not the small ones that came and got the occupants to go aboard.
Yeah,
but,
well, I suppose as much as Hollywood could do a job of it, you might say that, and they captured some of that ethereal, kind of glowing, gentle quality. I'll give you that, yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, Richard, it's fascinating stuff. It's bizarre. I've known you for a number of years. This has never happened to you until recently.
No.
Man, what do you tell people who say, Richard, I think we're going to cart you away now? I mean, what do you tell those people, the non-believers?
I'm a trained psychologist. I can write better admission orders than you can, but I have enough. I'm also a scientist, and I have enough independent corroboration. If we're just using the principles of jurisprudence and evidence that you get multiple corroborating sources, don't think that I don't pinch myself and have had questions about, this. But when I get enough corroborating multiple sources, I have to say, well, we got something here. I think the other half of it is going to be over the next several years. People are going to have to wait a little bit, but as they see things start to come out in the open and governments reluctantly admitting, yeah, they're here. Well, we've seen Guy Consolmagno do that for the Vatican in Harper's Monthly, this issue. We're going to see more governments doing that, and as we get an agreement, a new understanding going with the Star Nations, and they feel free and safe to come out in the open and start setting up these human Star Nation teams to take on different project areas and turn Earth around in a good direction, then I think it will speak for itself. Right now, I'm just a person talking, and people make of it whatever they will.
Well, you've got great credentials, Richard. I got to tell you, you're a scientist. It's an incredible story. You're an anthropologist, a PhD, behavioral scientist. I mean, this is amazing stuff. We'll be back in a moment. Next hour, your phone calls with our guest, Dr. Richard Boylan, on Coast to Coast AM. Richard, has this situation helped you or hurt you professionally? Behavioral scientist, anthropologist, you've got more titles than I can even announce. I mean, where does that stand for you?
You mean going public with this
yes.
Star Nations information?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had a couple of repercussions since I've gotten this information and started putting it out. Very shortly after I got this information, my wife and I went on a little trip, and someone sabotaged one of the rear tires on our truck. We were tooling along about 75 miles an hour on the interstate down in Southern California, out in the desert, and one tire was empty. Luckily, we had duals on the rear axle, and tire was totally shredded, but the other one held the weight, and we didn't careen off the highway into the side.
My God, Richard, you could have gotten killed if you had a single tire.
Yeah, definitely could have rolled. Then we've had some other stuff happen too, but that was the most dramatic. And of course, a lot of hate mail from the operatives who work for the cabal and don't want this out and do intimidation stuff. And some of my team colleagues, Frank and Wendy Marja, have had similar stuff too. They use psychotronics and even kind of psychic outreach. Some of the stuff sounds pretty bizarre, but where a person can sit in one place and send negative energy that shows up somewhere else and disturbs the person, causes them discomfort or pain or all kinds of turbulent feelings, while they're asleep or awake. This stuff's been done to other members of the team, men in black kind of things, intimidation stuff. One person, their place of work has been staked out, and these guys very obviously make themselves known so that she's intimidated, or at least they're trying to get her intimidated. She's a pretty tough gal. We understand that this thing has more importance than our personal comfort or even safety. The Earth and the human society literally hangs in the balance, and this word has to get out, and people are making the decisions to take the chances to get it out.
Well, let's go to the phones. So, Richard, everybody's stacking up for you. Let's go to our first wild card line. You're on Coast to Coast with us. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Blair in Sedona, Arizona.
Hey, Blair. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Boylan, what you're talking about, if you take the premise that this is an experimental planet, whereupon so-called good and evil are placed on what you might call an even playing field, you could put your star people in with Keys of Enoch, Urantia, George Adamski, and what I'm trying to say is these contacts and propositions like this will continue with probably more or less success until, as Buckminster Fuller says, a critical mass of free will, decision-making mortals is reached, and then us Earthlings will indeed move up a level. Don't you agree?
Well, there's certainly the critical mass needs to happen, and I think is happening, and I think the seeding of the star kids and the star seeds among us in such numbers are part of energizing that. I don't want to put the whole effort in their lap, because other humans of goodwill are also needed and are making contributions here. It's a matter of consciousness, and once people wake up that this is important and needs to happen now, then we will be at that critical mass, and I would certainly agree that we are right on the edge of an uptick in our social evolution, if you will.
Okay, thank you for that call, Blair. Let's go to our West of the Rockies line. Welcome to Coast. Hi there.
Hello, George. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
This is Mike calling from Auburn, Washington, and I'd like to ask a question of Richard.
Sure.
Richard, with these things that you feel or this information that you get, one thing that's always kind of intrigued me is I've heard about all these secret deals done between both the U.S. government and other heads of government of the planet Earth with these other alien races. And one of the things that I would want to do if I was one of these heads of government, for better or for worse, is, the best way to hang on to power is to live longer and live healthier. You hear of these people like, reportedly like Dick Cheney and Dwight Eisenhower that supposedly have contact with these aliens, having bad hearts and all that stuff. If I were one of those guys, I would go up to them and say, hey, could you please fix my heart as part of this deal? That's what I would do. Have you ever heard of